Hey everyone, welcome on into another episode of WRAL Triangle and Two. I am Luis Fernandez. He is Mark Bergin. We're coming to you on a Thursday for a lot of different reasons, but primarily because the Super Bowl just a few days away. Mark Bergin, how you doing, man? You doing well?
Luis, we will talk plenty of Super Bowl, but we have a lot to discuss when it comes to triangle and hoops, including Duke's big win against Notre Dame, and that's where we start today's show. I have a lot of questions, and really it's what Duke needs to do moving forward for the next Battle of the Blues in March. You get into conference tournament play, the NCAA tournament. What's the identity of this team, and what are the things that the Duke Blue Devils need to improve upon between now and then to ensure they're playing their best basketball come season's end?
So last night, and if people didn't hear this, I don't blame you because that game started at 9 p.m.
Your favorite, Luis.
I don't even get me started. But last night after the game, head coach John Shire said a few different things, right? After the UNC Duke game last Saturday, there was a lot of question of toughness, of that effort and aggressiveness going for loose balls and things along those lines. So how did Duke respond? He felt like they responded well. He described, Monday's practice as a pretty standard Duke, I guess you could say. No one lost jerseys or lockers or anything like that, but you did have a pretty intense session. And I'd say they bounced back well against Notre Dame. That was one thing all the players talked about in the locker room is they really wanted to emphasize playing better, playing more aggressive, and not relaxing, if you will. Was it perfect? No, but they were able to lean on their defense. Funny enough, I think one of the big things they have to get right is Kyle Filipowski, Mark.
Okay, so is that how Duke's going to play, is through the big man? Walk us through this, Luis.
So, their guard play is very good, obviously. I've got Tyrese Proctor, you got Jared McCain, okay? And they've had some players start to step up. When you have people like Jeremy Roach being healthy again, that's huge for them. Mark Mitchell being healthy again, he's someone who can kind of bang around on the inside, get offensive rebounds. I believe they had a season high in terms of offensive rebounds, I want to say, last night. But what I think elevates Duke is when Kyle Filipowski is playing at an All-American level. And what he has really struggled with so far this year, especially like when I say this year, I mean 2024 especially, is foul trouble. That's on the scouting report. It's go get Kyle Filipowski in foul trouble. When you look at the past few games, right? 4 fouls against Notre Dame, 4 fouls against UNC, 4 fouls against Virginia Tech, 5 fouls against Clemson, 4 fouls against Louisville. Like, he's constantly playing on that edge. And I think what that's done is it throws him off. He gets frustrated. And sometimes he's not able to be as aggressive, right? The Clemson game where, Clemson just throws up on themselves at the very end. He only takes 8 shots. He plays 24 minutes. Last night against Notre Dame, he picked up his 3rd foul like very, very early in the second half, and he was visibly frustrated. He only scores 8 points. He, almost has a double-double, 8 points, 9 rebounds, but he only takes 9 shots. Like, after the game, Shire said, Filipowski has to be better, and some of that is on him, but some of that is on the coaches working on, helping him get better at handling foul trouble, using their defensive schemes to maybe not put him as open as, where people are able to easily attack him. But it's tough because they also need big men. They need people to help protect the paint, and Filipowski has to play a big role in that.
This is no knock on any player, Luis. This is a different team when Filipowski's on the floor and when Ryan Young is on the floor. And you could put Ryan Young in a pick and roll. Filipowski, I think, is a little bit more adept on the perimeter. You mentioned the foul trouble, though. He's Duke's best player. There's a reason why he had all the preseason accolades and all of that. Of when he's right, he's a matchup problem. And what I would want to see the next time Duke plays UNC in March is, I thought Baycott got the better of Filipowski down low in that first matchup in terms of the physicality, in terms of saying, I'm going to body this dude. And I'm Armando Baycott right now, to where it's just like, down low, I'm going to take care of business. The equalizer to me is what Filipowski can do on the outside with his touch, the inside and outside game, even as a big man. That to me is your equalizer. And when that's right, there's a reason he has an NBA future. But you have to get that right. And if you can't stay on the floor due to consistently getting in foul trouble, Ryan Young gets on the floor, opposing teams put you in a pick and roll, and you get a guard matched up on a big man, and that's how you start to create matchup problems on the defensive end of the floor.
Yeah. And last thing I say, I will say, I do like what Ryan Young has done in the past few games, but it's different. It's different roles on the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Young, I think he had 6 points, 5 rebounds, 2 blocks. Like, he plays that 6-man, that kind of glue guy very well in terms of what they want to do, but they really don't have a lot of depth when it comes to protecting the paint. And I think that's where especially that foul trouble is going to be important for the Blue Devils. So something to watch with Kyle Filipowski. But let's move on to a game that happened a little bit earlier this week. UNC losing to Clemson in Chapel Hill, just the second time in program history that has happened. The second time in the past 4 years, I guess. What? Because you had 2020 is when UNC last lost to Clemson in Chapel Hill. So, Mark, we've had a couple of days to stew on this one. What were your initial thoughts? Is it as simple as it was a down game? Is there more? Especially coming after a big win against Duke, is there more to it than just that?
2-60 for the Clemson Tigers in Chapel Hill, like law of averages. I'm not panicking yet, but if the Tar Heels don't take care of business this weekend, that's where I'm like, 3 of 4. Now is that a trend? 2 of 3 losses around that Duke game. You're getting ready to play your big rival. And it's a rivalry, not just here in North Carolina. Everyone in the country is watching when Duke and UNC lace up. It's this weekend of, you don't want North Carolina to peak too soon. We saw 2 years ago what can happen when a team gets hot at the right time and plays its best basketball at the right time of the season. Because going into February, and Lewis, this is when I moved here 2 years ago. I went to a North Carolina Louisville game in Chapel Hill for $8 a ticket. Mm-hmm. And I'm not embarrassed to admit this. I had to triple check to make sure we were talking about a UNC men's basketball game and not a women's basketball game. But my point being, that team got hot at the right time. You hope with this current UNC team that they didn't peak too soon in the season, because when they're right and they play hard, this is a really fun team to watch. But you got a TCB, and that's take care of business this weekend.
You do worry a little bit about maybe the peaking a little early, but it's going to be a big game on Saturday against Miami. For the Tar Heels, because also when you look at it, right, unless something cataclysmic happens here, they should have the ACC in pretty good shape. But you're also kind of looking at the even bigger picture for UNC, right? Trying to get a 1 seed. I think they're kind of fighting an uphill battle just because of what the metrics have to say about the Atlantic Coast Conference. I think Ken Palm right now has them at 8. The net, I think, has them at like 10 or so. But they're still in a position where if they win the games they should win, beat some of the good teams left on their schedule, win the ACC tournament, they're going to be in contention for a 1 seed. So you kind of have to think about that. So that one, to me, the Clemson game screams like, emotional hangover after beating Duke. Armando Bacot said after the game that he was upset with some of his teammates coming in late and things like that for practice. So it kind of felt like an emotional hangover.
The first half, Lewis, you dig yourself too deep a deficit, and that it's just too much to overcome.
It was 15-2, like 3.5 minutes into the game. I mean, and then Clemson makes good shots. What do you expect? But the one thing I would like to see from UNC is a little more consistency from Cormac Ryan. Just pulling up some of his numbers here really quick, right? Part of the reason why, and he was always a little bit of a streaky shooter, I think, at Notre Dame. But part of the reason why you bring him in is for his 3-point shooting. Against Clemson, 0-6. Against Duke, 2 of 5. Against Georgia Tech, 3 of 10. So he's shooting less than 30% from three this season. So you'd like to see him kind of step up a little bit in that regard. I'm sure that's something they're working on. So I don't know. I'm not pressing the panic button on UNC yet, but Saturday's game is going to be big. You hope Seth Trimble will be okay, because Seth Trimble, I think, showed, especially in that Duke game, he's actually shown all season. He's been phenomenal to have coming off the bench in terms of energy, in terms of defense, his ability to make open shots. You really hope he comes back for the Tar Heels.
How far does North Carolina fall in the AP top 25 after the loss to Clemson?
I don't know. I mean, Clemson's going to be one of those bubble teams, a team that I think should probably make the tournament. I think that UNC win is going to be their big win on their resume. So I don't know. I mean, maybe a little bit, but I'm not so much worried about the AP top 25 for UNC at this point as I am the metrics and net and things like that. So
I still think they're top 10, assuming that they beat Miami. Yeah. If they lose to Miami, it's going to be a little bit of a free fall, but I still expect the Tar Heels to be in the top 10. Let's talk some NC State before we get into Super Bowl, Lewis.
Yeah.
NC State in the Pitt, and right now, let's just be honest. Wolfpack looking the outside in, going in as we approach March closer and closer. I'm looking at the rest of the schedule, and you've got to win more than you lose, but there's two opportunities here where you can claw your way back in. Just as soon as you think you're out, they drag me back in, to quote The Godfather 3. North Carolina in Chapel Hill on March the 2nd, and then 2 days later at home, PNC Arena against Duke. You've got to win at least one of those two, maybe even both, but you've got to win more than you lose down the stretch, because, again, right now, NC State's on the outside looking in when it comes to making the NCAA tournament. Yeah,
I mean, and even if they do really well down the stretch, I think they've kind of dug themselves too deep of a hole. Like, they just haven't looked great. Offensively, when you look at them, they will have these spurts where they just don't do anything, where they're just missing all kinds of easy buckets. I mean, the Georgia Tech game on Saturday, they had a stretch where, Georgia Tech ends up clawing back and taking a big lead. And then they go on this huge run in the second half, and that's great. But, against Pitt, they tie the game 30-30, and then Pitt goes on a 13-0 run. Like, I don't know. Like, DJ Horn and DJ Burns cannot have all your points. And that's exactly what's happening. I think if I pull up the box score here, you had DJ Burns had 19, 9 of 16 in 21 minutes. DJ Horn, he started off a little slow, but 25 points, 5 of 10 from 3. The rest of their starters can contribute 7 points. Like, you can't have that. In KenPom, they're 80 right now. In the net, not to just bring up the numbers. Whoa, excuse me.
Bless you.
Oh, thank you. In net, they're 80 as well. Like, these are on the outside looking in type things. They went on a 3-game losing streak. It's the teams they're losing to. 7-4 sounds a lot better than 7-5 now in the ACC, and they just needed, because of how poor their out-of-conference schedule was, and I say it over and over and over again, but they needed to rack up wins in the ACC, and that's just not what things are looking like for the Wolfpack right now.
It's not a WRAL Triangle and Two podcast unless you bring up that point about NC State, or if you mention North Carolina Tar Heels 3-point shooting defense, Lewis.
I mean, we call it like it is. Let's go ahead and move on from college basketball now to the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 58, if I'm reading my Roman numerals correctly. The Kansas City Chiefs versus the San Francisco 49ers. Mark, you have the floor, sir.
All right. The biggest storyline to me is, can Mahomes, Kelce, and Andy Reid get number 3? If this happens, and I think you could already make the argument, I think Mahomes moves into the Mount Rushmore of greatest quarterbacks of all time. He might already be there. I think you got Brady, Montana, Elway, Peyton Manning. I think Patrick Mahomes is right there if he gets it done on Sunday. So I think that's the biggest thing going in. Got a few other things I'll touch on, Lewis, but I'll let you hop in here.
Yeah, no, I agree. If Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs take care of business, yeah, I mean he's been in. I've said this for a while now that I feel like Patrick Mahomes is the most talented thrower of the football I've ever seen. I think
High
before
praise.
that was I think that was Aaron Rodgers, right? And now I think it's Patrick Mahomes. Like it's been that way for a while now. And it's always just been about, okay, what will his resume look like? Will he continue to build it? And I mean, you look at like the first 6 seasons of Tom Brady and the first 6 seasons of Patrick Mahomes, and he's like right there, which is wild to think of. And so if you haven't thought the Chiefs were a dynasty, a win in the Super Bowl, I think will confirm that they are a dynasty for whatever that means.
Let me hop in. If the Chiefs win, they'd be the first team since 03-04 when the New England Patriots went back-to-back. I can't believe that the Chiefs are even in the Super Bowl considering where this team was at offensively earlier in the year. And they've won in a different style than they have with the high-flying offense we're accustomed to seeing with the Chiefs in previous seasons. A little bit of a different style of football with this current Kansas City team.
Yeah, their defense is the reason why they are so successful, right? Like a big part of the reason why I thought that the Ravens were going to win in the AFC Championship game was because of their defense. And the Chiefs defense out-defensed the Ravens. They've got it on all levels. Good linebacker core, great secondary, especially at corner. You've got Chris Jones up the middle on the defensive line, who just absolutely causes havoc.
Stud.
I mean, they are so good defensively and offensively. You've got Patrick Mahomes. You've got a solid offensive line. Travis Kelce is rounding back in form. Isaiah Pacheco is fantastic. And their receiver core is improving, which is why, I mean, MVS, is starting to catch the football deep down the field now. Rashee Rice is no longer a rookie, truly, but is playing of high quality. And when you got Patrick Mahomes back there who nullifies any pass rush because you just can't bring him down, like, I mean, it is a recipe for success. But I also feel like we're not giving the 49ers enough credit, Mark.
We'll talk about the 49ers in just a second, Lewis. But did you know that Taylor Swift's flying in from Tokyo for this game?
Yes, Mark. I know that Taylor Swift is flying in from Tokyo for this game. I'll reiterate the point that I made, Mark, last time on the Triangle and Two is I hope every single Taylor Swift football hater can kick rocks. I hope they show her all the time.
Tell us how you really feel, Lewis.
I hope Taylor Swift has a great time, and I hope that the Kansas. I'll be rooting for the Chiefs. I've said that. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
I have a lot of questions if and when the Chiefs win, because we think, oh, well, this is going to be winding down now that football season's done. Taylor just won her 4th Grammy for Album of the Year. Just announced a new album due out in April. Savvy businesswoman. Savvy. I'm not going to knock her for that. But when the confetti's coming down and she gets a smooch with Travis, and does Travis propose? What a time that would be. Could they go to Disney World? Could they co-host SNL together? The possibilities are endless, Lewis. And we think that this is winding down. Nuh-uh. We're just gonna ratchet it up even more. We're in a Taylor Swift world. And in terms of fame, I'm talking in terms of fame here, you think of like Elvis, Michael Jackson, like all time. And you can argue the music is better in this generation or that era, whatever. In terms of fame, that's the caliber we're talking about right now when it comes to Taylor Swift.
Yeah, it's Taylor Swift. That's been the case for a long time. I don't know. I have some thoughts on her winning Album of the Year.
Is that for another podcast?
It's for another podcast. But I hope everyone has a good time. I hope everyone has a good time watching the Super Bowl. And if more women getting into the NFL threatens you, then I think you can kick rocks. That's what I think.
Let's talk 49ers and we'll sign off here. Brock Purdy being Mr. Irrelevant, you're going to hear ad nauseum. One other thing, too. Kyle Shanahan, can he finally win the big game? Because if Jimmy G doesn't have an overthrow a few years ago, maybe the 49ers go on and win the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, and we remember history differently. Also remember that Shanahan was the OC in Atlanta when the Falcons had a 28-3 lead against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. Can he finally win the big one? From a 49er standpoint, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, they now that I think about it, Kyle Shanahan really has had awful luck when it comes to playing generational quarterbacks in the Super Bowl. Like, I mean, I never thought of it like that before, but man, this guy he can't catch a break. You know, I think the 49ers, my big question with them is going to be, you know, will they still be able to work with this, you know, most efficient like NFL offense of all time? Against the Chiefs. Will that still work? I don't think Brock Purdy is going to play poorly. I feel like Brock Purdy, if anything, will continue to play well. My big question is everyone that is not Brock Purdy. So I'm looking at, you know, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. How do they match up against, you know, L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie? Yeah.
Out of Washington.
You know, I'm looking at George Kittle. I'm looking at Christian McCaffrey still going to do his thing. So
hang on. Don't forget about the big fella up front, Trent Williams, the left tackle. I'm telling you this right now, and this is the portion at the end of the show we're talking about the big uglies up front. One of the best offensive linemen in all of football. But please continue, Lewis.
No, agreed. So I'm looking at everyone else. But the way I kind of look at this game, Mark, is if it's a high scoring affair, I think that favors San Francisco. If it's a low scoring affair, I think that favors Kansas City. All time, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are 9-3 when since Mahomes got there as an underdog, and I think Vegas has them as like -2 or +2 right now. I want to say,
2-point underdogs. Yep.
So you know, but at the same time, in my mind, I'm like, okay, is this Vegas trying to get people to pick against the 49ers? So does that mean the 49ers are actually going to win? I'm going back and forth. I don't feel great about picking this game. I lean Chiefs because I don't like picking against Patrick Mahomes because
he's the equalizer. He's the equalizer. I'm with you there. If I have to pick, I'd pick the 49ers, but I have a lot of the same sentiments where it's like, I'm really going to go against Mahomes again, and Purdy playing in his first Super Bowl. The nerves, like what that does and the psyche and the pressure. We'll see, though. Super Bowl Sunday. If we could pool our money together, $7 million, Lewis, we could put together a Super Bowl commercial. So look for that. It's always so much fun. There's something for everyone. There's going to be a lot of movie trailers as part of those commercials. I'm excited to just get just all the different hors d'oeuvres and chips and dips, and just, you know, it's always just a great celebration, and it's a little bittersweet that football season's coming to an end, but I'm not trying to wish my life away. Sunday cannot come soon enough.
Have you seen the Paramount Plus commercial?
I don't think so. No.
You'll pay attention for that one. I've seen that one ahead of time. That's a good one. If you know, you know.
Speaking of Paramount Plus too, and I know that they have the Mission Impossible movie on it now. Keep an eye out for the new Mission Impossible trailer. It's going to be due out this summer. Should be sick. And honestly, Lewis, I think this is a good place for me to wrap because now we're talking movies.
This is why you come to WRAL Triangle and Two, is for
Absolutely.
Our thoughts on trailers and commercials. Either way, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching to another episode of WRAL Triangle and Two. I'm Louis Fernandez. He's Mark Bergin. You can catch us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch us on 99.9 The Fan on their YouTube page. Like, subscribe, good ratings, all that stuff. Thank you everyone for listening, for watching, and we will see you next week.